Johnny Mack live in Philly at the NovaCare Center.
Can I just say, sitting next to John Mack last night, John McMullen, while the draft was going on, made the draft more enjoyable for me. To sit there, I mean, look, the John McMullen snarkiness doesn't always come through on Twitter, but when you're sitting right next to him as the picks are being announced, and then he gets to sort of project, well, they did this, so this may happen, that was worth its weight in gold.
Well, John's got to run early today because Derek Barnett's press conference at 4:15. We'll carry that for you live on 97.3 ESPN. John will be there, so let's bring John in now and get some of his initial thoughts. As Derek Barnett, 14 is the pick. There's a lot of talent on the board, John, at that very spot. They elected to kind of go with, some would say, a safe pick, maybe the more less sexy pick. What was your reaction of their job? It sounds like a Joe Douglas type of pick.
Yeah, it is, and I think if you think about Joe's history in Baltimore, in the comparison to Terrell Suggs, who developed into a 6-time Pro Bowl player, former Defensive Player of the Year. But if you go back to the draft, when Terrell was coming out, there was a lot of questions because he ran very, very poorly at the combine, and that was kind of the big knock on Derek Barnett, as he ran a 4.88. So the concern is, does he have the speed to close around the edge? And we'll see. But one thing he has, and that's where the comparison comes in with Suggs, is he was tremendously productive at the college level, and so was Terrell at Arizona State. And I think he's kind of leaning on that. You know, playmakers make plays, and Derek made a lot of plays at Tennessee.
At 14, there was a lot of talent on the board. You comfortable with that being the final selection, or did you think there was somebody else that fell to them because of all the quarterbacks and all the wideouts that ended up going before them that maybe was, wow, I can't believe you passed on? You're okay with Barnett if he was there and not, you know what I'm saying, that there wasn't a lot of other talent, but I thought there was a lot of other talent that made that decision a lot more difficult for them. Did you see that the same way?
Yeah, I tend to look at the Alabama guys, triumvirate, so to speak. Jonathan Allen, O.J. Howard, Reuben Foster. Foster specifically, to me, was a top 10 talent. But while I say that, you know, he fell to late in the first round, 31, for a reason. There were more teams concerned with him than just the Eagles. As far as the health aspect went. So that played into it, obviously. And then, you know, we kind of talked on the show about O.J. Howard. It was sort of the mentality, you have to change offensive philosophy. And I'm not sure the Eagles wanted to do that. Similar with Reuben Foster, because if you bring Reuben Foster in, he's a flat-out middle linebacker. So that means Jordan Hicks has got to move to the weak side, and that's been a playmaker. So all these dominoes, when you hear best player available, I would say it's best player available at need position. So the Eagles, to me, were looking at defensive end, cornerback, wide receiver, running back, and once Conley and Sidney Jones weren't in the equation, then Derek Barnett became number one.
John McMullen with us. John, you know I'm a fan, and so I see Lattimore on the board last night still as they're getting close to that 11th pick. Should the Eagles have made a move up to try and get Lattimore and made a move to find a way to get up there, made that phone call to the Saints?
Well, it depends, you know. Yeah, I like him as a player, but if you look at the teams that traded up, they were giving away their firstborn. And how a lot of it had to do with the quarterbacks. And you know, you have teams giving up future first-round draft choices to go up and get a quarterback. I don't think you would have to do that, obviously, at the cornerback position. But obviously, people were paying a premium to get up in this draft, and I don't think the Eagles were willing to do it. And I can't blame them for that, because I don't think with the number of holes on this team, I think you need to add bodies at a number of positions. And if anything, they need more draft picks, not less.
John McMullen's live at the NovaCare Center. Derek Barnett will be introduced to the media. You'll hear that live right here on 97.3 ESPN. When you look at Barnett, give the listeners a little bit of insight on what he'll add and where he fits in, because the obvious question is, okay, Chris Long, what does this mean for Vinny Curry? Oh, didn't they just draft a pass-rushing guy named Marcus Smith a couple of years ago? Have they given up on all of these guys? Not Long is given up on, but have they given up on Curry? Have they given up on Smith? Why? Where do you see Barnett fitting in 2017?
Well, I think the hope is he gets up to speed very quickly and becomes a starter at right end. But if you look at Jim Schwartz and his philosophy in general, he always wants an 8-man rotation if he can get it, and that includes 4 on the outside, 4 on the inside. So you're going to have 4 guys playing. In a best-case scenario, that would be Barnett, Graham, Chris Long, and Vinny Curry. So it probably does say a lot about Marcus Smith and the fact that he's probably not in this team's plans moving forward, at least as far as being a meaningful contributor in the rotation. And Vinny Curry, yeah, he's on notice. He's got to perform and he's got to produce better. But obviously, if you take somebody with the 14th pick in the draft, you want to get him on the field relatively quickly.
All right, John, so give us the goods. 43, that's the pick the Eagles have next. Mixon, Cook, Sidney Jones. Give us the goods, baby. Who's it going to be?
I think it's got to be a corner. I really do. I mean, I know there's been a lot of speculation about Joe Mixon, and he might even be there. I think the Eagles do like him, and he would be a great fit for this team as well. But the cornerback position is such an issue, and it's such a deep position. There's a lot of guys there, starting with Kenny King probably would be a real lengthy option if somehow he falls to that position. But I would certainly look at cornerback first and foremost today.
All right, John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN.com. Let's get the Mixon, 43, if he's there. All right, I know corner. I'm with you on the corner, but if Mixon's still on the board, Cook. Scott Wright joined us earlier. He says he's got his mock draft up. He's got Cook 43 to the Eagles. Is Cook or Mixon just too good to pass on at 43, even with the need that we both share at corner? As you know, I've said many times, corner. They do have 2 fourth-round picks, by the way, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love Mixon talent-wise, no question, first-round pick. Yeah, obviously, it's the off-the-field issues. I'm not as high on Cook just because of the measurables, and he didn't work out all that well. And if you look at the history and where he kind of fits in as far as running back athletic ability, it doesn't translate well towards success. So I'd be more concerned about him. By all accounts, Jeffrey Lurie's given the green light. They're allowed to take Mixon if they want him, and we'll see how it shakes out. But to me, you have need at both positions, but I think the need is greater corner.
John, we know you're up there. What's one thing you want to find out from Derek Barnett today?
Well, we got most of it yesterday, to be honest. This is sort of like a redo of everything. But, the most interesting part to me is always how much interest did the Eagles show in the pre-draft process, if they sort of winked it and gave it away. And they certainly had interest in Derek because he was well aware that Joe Douglas had compared him to Terrell Suggs. And, everyone has said he broke Reggie White's sack record. As I mentioned, Suggs, he compared himself to Michael Bennett. So if we can get Reggie White, Terrell Suggs, and Michael Bennett will be just fine.
Yeah, the guy I compared him to, that he reminded me of, not really a comparison so much, although Pete pointed out that they had the exact same size and height, weight and height, was Darren Howard. Do you remember Darren Howard, who played for the Eagles? Just was a solid player, was not flashy, came to play, double-digit sacks. If he turns out to be that was the guy that popped out to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, you would hope to have more. Again, you want more production from the 14th pick in the draft. So, if Joe Douglas is right and he can turn into the type of player Terrell Suggs has been in Baltimore, then you really have something. So, but that's a high bar to clear for a young player, and I'm not sure you want to put that type of pressure on him this early. but certainly they think that's his ceiling as a player, and we'll see if he can get there.
Well, John, we know you got to run because Derek's going to be speaking here in a couple minutes. I wish we had our full time like normal because that draft was wild last night. We were there, and the reactions in all of the rooms was just wild. Trades, 3 quarterbacks, wide receivers. We'll have to recap the whole thing on Monday, pal, but we appreciate the time sneaking us in.
All right, thank you, guys.